So this afternoon, we are gathered to give honor to Selma and to support those who loved her dearly. That is the purpose of our gathering. Rabbi Rachel, here at Temple Emanu-El, please, if you didn't already, take a second to make sure your devices are on silent or alarms are turned off, just so we can keep this as a nice space this afternoon. I know you hit the button for turn it to do not disturb and you hit the where's my phone button. I've been there too. Shivit Yadonai L'negdi tamid ki mimini balemot lachen samach libi vayage kevodi af bisari yishkon lavetach. Death has taken Selma, and we recognize that family and friends, they grieve in these moments and days as their world has gone a little dark. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. In their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends with a shoulder of support and a touch of care from the soul of another. Hear them, friends. Hear them, God. Be with them. And in this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. And I did not have the pleasure to get to know Selma, and so my remarks this afternoon are only meant to be an introduction. The loving stories will be shared by the family. And Selma, she passed away peacefully on Wednesday evening at the age of 97. And she was married to Leslie Jacobs for 66 years until his passing in 2011. Selma was born into a large family, the third of 5 children. She lived in Brooklyn, Queens, New Jersey, and Florida until finally residing in Atlanta for the past 12 years. Selma was the valedictorian of her high school class, and then went on to design school in Manhattan to become a dress designer of evening wear. She and Les were avid bridge players and golfers, and together they finished the New York Times Sunday crossword puzzle each week. Selma always enjoyed spending quality time with her great-grandchildren and made many new friends in Atlanta, including Leon Feldman. She is survived by many who loved her deeply, and a few of whom have additional words to share with us this afternoon. So Elliot, if you will, please come on up.
When I think back to growing up with my parents back in Brooklyn and Queens, I'm sure there were times of stress and conflict, but right now, all I can think of are the pleasant times. My mother taking me to Prospect Park in Brooklyn, my parents taking me and Janet to Jones Beach Hotel in the Catskills, Radio City Music Hall, and the dinners. My mother was a wonderful cook. veal francese, Swedish meatballs, salmon croquettes. She made this thick vegetable soup, almost a stew. She called it Mother Jacob soup. My parents were a great team. My father was a CPA, and my mother and father built the accounting and bookkeeping practice together. And during tax season, my father would write out the tax returns and the schedules. My mother would type it up, and my job was to look for typing errors. They were hard to find. My mother was very good. But once in a great while, I'd find one, like a little gold nugget. And my father would congratulate me, "You found a mistake," and I would feel guilty because I felt I was ratting out my mother. My mother was very, very social. She had lots of friends over, mahjong, bridge. And when she moved to Atlanta, her social circle expanded even more. I didn't appreciate how much at first, but when I came up to visit, we went into the dining hall. There was always a great big table reserved because she had a lot of people sitting with her. And at the end of the meal, when we get up, she would stop at each of the tables along the way, and she would introduce me. She knew everybody's name. She knew their backstories. It would generally take about 25 minutes to a half hour from when we got up from the table till we got out of the dining hall. Now, in recent years, as she became more frail and her memory began to fade, the socialization decreased. She stopped going down to the dining hall. But she had a lot of people who gave her a lot of attention, care, and love. My sister Janet came over all the time to visit, run errands for her, take her to the doctor. Scott and Lori were wonderful, and she loved those Sunday brunches with the bagels. She had excellent caregivers, Joyce, Joy, and Barbara, and she really appreciated the great care that she got. And I have to make a special mention of Leon Feldman. They had a relationship that went on for about 9 years. They cared deeply for each other. I saw her light up whenever he came to visit. Something about that relationship gave me a lot of encouragement as I get older, because I could see that even when you get to the advanced reaches of old age, it's possible to make a deep connection and bond with someone else. Woody Allen once said, "The heart is a resilient little muscle." Anyway, last week, I came up to Atlanta to visit. Janet was there, Scott was there, Leon was there, Leon's son showed up briefly, Joyce was there. It was a joyous occasion. My mother found out she was going to become a great-great-grandmother. I told her that, "Hey, I'm going to be coming up again for your 98th birthday," and she was looking ahead. And I thought to myself, I bet she's going to last another couple of years. But she didn't, and here we are. I'm reminded of an inscription I once saw. Down in South Florida, where my father is interred, a few yards away from where he was buried, there was an inscription on a tombstone. It said, and I quote, "97 years was not enough." Mom, that applies to you. You lived a long and happy life, but 97 years was not enough. You deserve many more years of love and happiness. Goodbye, Mom. You'll stay forever in our hearts and memories.
Thank you. And Scott?
So, when someone lives to the age of 97 years old, as my grandmother did, after being healthy and surrounded by loved ones up until her final years, we are here to mourn her passing, but this is also a celebration of my grandmother's life. My grandmother, Selma Jacobs, Grandma, as we called her, lived a long, healthy, happy, and blessed life. You might say she lived the American dream, the American Jewish dream. I'm not going to go into a deep family history, but it's worth it to mention a few key things. And this is mainly for the kids, to always remember where we came from. Grandma was born on the Lower East Side of Manhattan into a tenement apartment. And if you've ever been to the Tenement Museum in New York City, which I highly recommend, she lived a few blocks from there, and I imagine it was similar. Her mother's family had left Lvov, Ukraine, and the relatives that did not leave all perished in the Holocaust. Grandma didn't like to talk about it much, but she kept a picture of those relatives, and I'm planning to go find it in her apartment. At some point, Grandma's family moved to Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, like the movie. And there, Grandma grew up with her older brother and 3 sisters. To quote a phrase, they were poor but proud. She met my grandfather Les at a war bonds rally in the Bronx. They got married during the war and lived, of all places, in Fort Benning, Georgia, until my grandfather was discharged. And they were married for 66 happy, healthy, and wonderful years. They raised their family, my mom and Uncle Al, who you just heard speak beautifully. They raised their family in Queens and retired to Florida for almost 30 years, playing golf, cards, enjoying their friends, and social life. After my grandfather passed away 12 years ago, at the age of 91, Grandma moved here to Atlanta, where she made a new life for herself and made new friends, including Leon. Leon's friendship and companionship could not have been more meaningful. And I know that Ellen and Michael, who are here, we feel that you've been part of our extended family for the past decade, and we thank you for that. Some of my best memories growing up were visiting my grandparents in Florida. My grandmother would spoil us with treats and lots of food, a huge breakfast, 2 lunches, snacks, and as we're coming out of our food coma, she would let us know it was time to leave for the 4:30 early bird special. And when we visited, Grandma always made my favorite chocolate pudding, the kind with the layer on top of it. She was so proud of her family and would take my brother and I and show us off all over the community. These are my grandsons. I think you might have a granddaughter about their age. And of course, people who didn't know us all thought my grandmother was my mom because she was so young. This can't possibly be your grandson, they said. You look like his mom. My grandmother designed and sewed her own stylish clothes and knitted sweaters for all of us, a lost art. She was supremely elegant. Dressing well was important. You never know who you're going to run into. So look, you always have to look your best. When Grandma moved to Atlanta, we started the tradition of the weekly Sunday bagel brunch. These times with her were precious. Grandma would arrive in a perfect suit with a flower in her lapel, while we were all in sweats. She learned to live with our casual attire, but Lori and I always admired her fashion sense. We would discuss her adjustment to the Piedmonts, the new social situation, and Grandma was a master at social situations. and quickly made friends and formed a new social group. She would give Jamie advice about dealing with friends in cliques and other issues. They were 70 years apart in age, but Grandma's advice was still relatable and valid. All of our kids were able to get to know Grandma and gain some of her wisdom, and she became a role model for them. I also want to take a minute to mention Grandma's caregivers, Joyce, Barbara, and Joy. And I saw Joyce and Barbara here. Thank you. The compassion and the care that you showed my grandma was extraordinary, and we will always be grateful to all of you. My grandmother was graceful, she was sophisticated, she was elegant, and Grandma was confident and decisive when she needed to be. But most of all, she loved her family, and we all loved her dearly. Grandma, you were a blessing to us. We will miss you and remember you always.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
So for those who don't know me, I'm Jeff. I'm Selma's other grandson. My earliest memories of my grandmother were in my grandparents' apartment in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Coming first from the suburbs of Charlotte and then later North Jersey, the high-rise apartment on the Hudson River was always an exotic change for my brother and I. We'd be sent there occasionally and enjoyed what seemed to be luxury at that age: great meals, card games, terrace viewing, zoo trips. Grandma always had our favorite food ready, like spaghetti and meatballs, homemade chocolate pudding in the fridge. Like my grandmother, the apartment was always immaculate, including the never-touched candies near the door and the ubiquitous plastic slip-covered grandma sofa. In my memories, that all happened in a kind of golden haze of the 70s. But as I got older, I noticed a feature of her personality that I truly admired. It was her fearlessness. That's not to say that she was without fear, but that she had a bold approach to living. As I witnessed Grandma pass through her many stages of life over the years, her ability to move forward without fear always made an impression on me. Suddenly, one day it seemed that she and my grandfather were retirees down in Florida. And although I think retirement meant something different for my grandmother, she approached retirement like the Sunday Times crossword puzzle, a challenge to be unlocked. If being social was an art form, she was definitely an artist. My grandparents were the retirement village equivalent of the power couple. She wasn't afraid to jump into the unfamiliar and make it her own. My grandfather wouldn't go near the newfangled fax machine. Grandma was in charge of that. Our computers are a thing now? No problem. Suddenly she's using a computer. If it means getting the latest electronically mailed pictures, she's all in. I remember one day, really without consulting anybody, we heard that she just went in and got LASIK surgery, I guess maybe to improve her golf game, but that was pretty early on. At that time, I had mostly associated with that kind of eye surgery with fighter pilots. Now, fighter pilots and Grandma. When she and my grandfather first started taking summers in Vermont and later at Banner Elk, they considered on how to break into the close-knit group of retirees already there. First order of business, organizing pickup bridge games. Everything else fell into place after that. Grandma seemed to effortlessly move from one phase of life to another, which, of course, it wasn't effortless at all, but her confidence and poise always made it look that way. After Grandpa was gone, she fearlessly moved to another stage of life. She moved to Atlanta to the Hallmark, where she eventually would meet Leon and spend her final happy years among him. And her final fulfilling years in Atlanta as the family matriarch were marked by having her family close, with weekly brunches at Scott and Lori's and visits from her children, Jan, my mom, and my uncle Elliot, and visits from her great-grandkids. What did I learn from my grandmother? I guess to approach life's changes without reservation. In fact, to make it your own. Make your place in unfamiliar territory. And be bold and love your family. Grandma, you profoundly shaped who I am, who we all are, and it's hard to believe that you're not still here with us. I will remember you for the rest of my life and will always miss you.
Thank you. Jim.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My brother and my sons have really said everything that I would say, except that I want to say that I'm profoundly grateful to my parents for instilling me the Jewish values of family and education. They protected us from anti-Semitism. And when I went to sleepaway camp each summer for 8 weeks, it was with many children of Holocaust survivors. And that gave me my identity, and especially in this time when we see just so much anti-Semitism in America, which is shocking, that I'm so glad to have had the upbringing that I had. And I thank Lori and Scott for giving that Jewish education to their children, to my grandchildren. So I don't know what else to say, except I'm going to miss my mother terribly. I remember when I went out on a blind date with my husband, I came home, went upstairs, said, "Mom, I think I just met the man I'm going to marry." She was the first one I told, and I married him. So thanks again, and thank you to all the people who, gave my mother love and care, and with everyone that she knew and cared for, I keep thinking, Mom, you should be here now to see all these people who were part of your life. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. I invite those who are familiar with the traditional translation of Psalm 23 to join with me as I recite these words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please rise for the singing and recitation of El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utohorim, Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Selma Shehalecha Olama, Ba'ala Rachamim Yastireha, Beseter Knafav Le'olamim, V'yitzror B'yitzror HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'yanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Selma, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. God gives and God takes. God gives opportunities for us to love, but not forever. God takes opportunities after a while. So don't hesitate or delay or curse the darkness while remaining mired in sadness and hopelessness, because God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But why bless the Lord when God takes away? Because if the opportunities were always there, we would wait until the time was just right and never make the leap, and more of life would slip away. So God gives and God takes. Blessed be God's name. So this concludes our sanctuary service. So the burial at the cemetery will be a private ceremony for the family. I'd ask that the pallbearers please rise first, as well as the family that's heading to the cemetery. And they're going to make their exit first. And friends, Lori and Scott's home will be open at 7 p.m. tonight for Shiva. The minyan itself, the service will start at 7:30. Thank you.